Hi, I look forward to this interview and I hope you do too. Brendan will be hosting a training around how South Africans can build financial freedom. Let me know if you'd like to attend his training. It's on Tuesdays. And send me an email at patduepoint, PATDUEPOINT, @gmail.com. I'll put that in the description and I'll invite you to it. Enjoy the interview. Hello all and welcome to another episode. And today we are fortunate to be joined by Brendan Benfield. Are you a doctor yet, Brendan? Did I forget to
Not
put an
yet.
honorific?
No.
Okay, hopefully soon. Brendan has honored us by joining us and sharing his story. We're really grateful to have you, Brendan. Welcome.
Thank you, Patrick.
Awesome. So, Brendan, tell us a little bit about yourself. And did you know that you were going to be doing what you're doing when you were a kid?
No, I think that with most people's lives, it's a journey of discovery. I certainly didn't know I'd be doing what I'm doing now at age 9. I come from a family that was involved in the insurance industry my whole life, so it's all I've known. And I remember both my brother and I telling my dad when we were young, we didn't want to be in the insurance industry. It sounded terribly boring. It looked terribly boring. And I do have clear memories of saying to my dad, no, I don't want to be involved in insurance at all. No, thank you. So it is perhaps a little bit astounding. I do find myself in this position, but at the same time, I think I've got to understand the industry a bit better than I did as a child. And so it's not surprising I've ended up here. One of the only really still working, functioning, globally recognized industries in South Africa. I think anybody who's anybody is going to ultimately end up in this sector in South Africa.
Thank you. So run us through. When you started, what did you want to do you think? At 9 years old, what were you anticipating you'd end up doing?
At 9, I've always been a petrol head. And so I've always really loved racing cars and driving fast and loving sports cars and all of that. Never had the opportunity to do it in my life outside of the odd advanced driving course, track day here and there. I've never, even to this day, been able to really do it. But I remember being passionate about that as a 9-year-old. So dreaming about being a racing car driver and reading all the car magazines about, and a little bit like the Pretty Woman story in some senses. I quite like the idea of getting involved in other people's successful businesses. I think in the heart of it was the entrepreneurial spirit I had. And I thought that without knowing it at the time, subconsciously, I think that seemed the most inspiring for that want in my spirit. So I would have said that, but quite quickly that faded. That was the reason why I became a chartered accountant, was to go into the mergers and acquisition space, the merchant banking space. But as I moved through my degree and went into articles, I was in articles with Deloitte for 3 years. I got exposed to a much broader spectrum and realized, particularly in South Africa, that outside of the legal space of mergers and acquisitions, it wasn't really going to be a space that was going to fulfill me the way I had originally expected. And so I took a different path from that point forward.
Interesting. And can you tell us about the path? What did you end up doing? You said insurance, but can you run us through, how you went into
It was
insurance?
a journey to insurance. Insurance wasn't where we started. I first went overseas, and I lived overseas for about 2.5 years in Australia. That's where all South Africans go at one point or another. Black and white. I mean, we had black and white South African friends in Australia that were all doing their stint in Australia. I wonder if it's like the old days, you had to go to the army for 2 years. Now you go to Australia for 2 years and then come back. I don't know. Anyway, so we spent our 2.5 years there, and I was working at Deloitte. My wife was working at Pricewaterhouse. And again, we got massively exposed to the economy. We're very fortunate. We got into the audit committees and board meetings and that of some of the biggest companies in Australia. And a couple of realizations were made for me, particularly as an entrepreneur. I knew I was never going to be employed forever. I wanted to start my own thing. I wanted to build my own thing and a chance of success in South Africa. This was around 2004, 2005. South Africa was really booming at that stage under the sort of Thabo Mbeki kind of regime. And I remember seeing video footages of the Sandton skyline, and there were 30 or 40 cranes in the air building buildings in that area. Long have those days passed. But nonetheless, the booming economy that was back here and the space that the South African economy offered us just did not exist in Australia, an almost completely saturated economy. And so after about 2.5 years, my wife and I packed up and we came back, and my brother and I and my dad started a business called SA Motor Loans, which was a lending business. And it's quite interesting. My father had been sitting in a Standard Bank branch, and he had seen a newsletter that was lying on the table, Standard Bank internal newsletter, that had said that they had done 2 billion rand in finance in 1 month. And he looked at this and went, this is massive. None of us had ever realized how big the motor financing industry was in South Africa. Now, I don't know what those numbers are today. They're arguably smaller than they were back then, but it was just booming. And so my dad said to himself, geez, got to get us into this space. This is huge. Even if we have a small piece of this, it would be very lucrative. And so on our return, he suggested to my brother and I, we were both finishing our articles at the time, listen, you guys should really consider doing something along these lines. So the three of us got together and we built SMO for about 3 or 4 years, but we could not have timed it worse. Our timing, as my brother says, we chose the perfect storm to start a lending business. And the first thing that happened was the National Credit Act was arguably the most destructive piece of legislation ever passed in South Africa. And it all but ruined the opportunity for South Africans to gain finance and to be able to lend. And I always laugh because here we are now, 17 years later. And what we hear the government saying is that the banks are not being fair, they're not lending to South Africans. What they have forgotten was that the National Credit Act completely throttled the ability of the banks to lend money. Now, of course, we were in the lending business as the National Credit Act was passed. And so our ability to lend as a growing company got squashed from this down to lend to South Africa. It was an absolute nightmare. And so that was the first hurdle. And we managed to overcome it. And we worked incredibly hard and strategically, and we got around it. And 2 years later, as we were just starting to lift the nose on the business, the 2008 global finance crisis struck. We had 4 banks that were supporting us in our lending structure. And on the same day, I remember it was a Friday afternoon. We always joke that Friday afternoons are when all the disasters strike. It was at about 4:30 on that fateful Friday afternoon, about September 2008, when we got 4 letters simultaneously from 4 different banks canceling their arrangement with us. And overnight, our business was shut down. And so I spent all of 2009 retrenching 128 staff members that we had built up. I was young still, but it was arguably the most stressful thing I have ever done. I'm very much a people person and a people pleaser, and to be able to retrench 128 people is arguably the most destructive thing you can ask a people pleaser to do. And I spent my entire year of 2009 doing that as we scrambled to work out what to do. Now, as a lending business, we had borrowed too. My brother and I were young. We didn't have money. I think we were sitting at the end of 2009 on about 60 million rands worth of debt that we were personally liable for. And I was about 30. And it was absolutely frightening situation. We had, at the end of 2009, we had 1.3 million rand in the bank. And my brother and I sat down in December of 2009. I remember we were sitting in my parents' house down in Knysna. We were told I had young children. My son was less than a year old, and my daughter was about 2. And my brother was in exactly the same position. I think his son was 3 and his daughter was about 1. And we closed the doors and we said, no one is to disturb us today. It was Boxing Day. It was the day after Christmas in 2009. And we said, right, we have one more chance at this. One more chance. What are we going to do? And my dad said to me, well, I made all my money through insurance. Maybe you guys want to do it. Now, at that point in time, becoming a racing car driver just didn't seem feasible. And everything we had tried before had put us into 60 million rands worth of debt. So we said, yeah, all right, we better look at this. Now, we had learned one thing from the motor lending business, financing business, was that 99% of the people who borrowed money from us canceled their comprehensive motor insurance the day after they took delivery of their cars. You might or might not know, less than 30% of South African drivers are insured. More than 70% drive around completely uninsured. And the reason for this is simple. It's just cost. To insure a vehicle these days, you're looking at between 2,000 Rand, 2,000 Rand upward, depending on the value of your car. Even back in 2009, the cheapest insurance I saw was 1,700 Rand comprehensive on a vehicle. And I said to my brother at the time, during the course of 2009, geez, isn't there a way we could create cheaper comprehensive insurance? So my brother, who's very academic and in tune with the numbers, said, Brandon, it's impossible. You'd have to do something stupid like remove the accident cover. in order to reduce the premium. And so here we were sitting on Boxing Day where we were feeling like, well, we'll just do just about anything. And my brother said to me, why don't we try and create a product that doesn't have accident cover in? It covers just the write-off of your vehicle or the theft of your vehicle. I'm pretty sure we can reduce the premium dramatically. And so I said to him, you build the product, I'll sell the product. And so on that day, we constructed a call center, a commission structure, and a product called our comprehensive motor insurance product, which covered only write-off and theft. On the 4th of January 2010, with less than 20 staff members left after 2009, we set up very quickly on the Sunday a makeshift call center. And on the Monday morning, we ran some TV ads. We spent 40,000 Rand on TV ads in the month of January 2010. Now, if any of you have ever booked TV adverts, you will know that 40,000 Rand will generally get you 3 ads. Well, I managed to find 500 Rand ads. 500 Rand ads that ran at 1 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3:20 in the afternoon. And I managed to get about 1 advert a day for that 40,000 Rand for the month of January. And that ad ran on that Monday morning, and the leads just went crazy. Now, the reason for that was we were able to reduce the insurance. As I said to you, at the time, the cheapest insurance we could find was about 1,680 Rand. We reduced it to 260 Rand a month. And so we ran the TV ad and said, we'll give you write-off and theft insurance for 260 Rand. And we had 650 people that responded off of a 500 Rand ad in the middle of nowhere, like 4 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, with 650 responses. Came into our call center of 20 people, and I think we sold about 100, maybe 150 of them on the first day. We were absolutely staggered. By the end of the first month, we'd sold 2,000 policies, and 6 months later, we were profitable. We never had to lend another cent from anyone. Our 1.3 million Rand in the bank survived us. And 2 years later, we had paid back every cent of our 60 million Rands worth of debt. And I took the first raise and the first bonus of my life around my mid-30s from Prime Meridian Direct. And Prime Meridian Direct today is a major multi-billion Rand short-term insurer. In fact, I think it's the third largest short-term insurer in the country today. And so it was an amazing turnaround, and it came from pure desperation. But we worked hard and we found ourselves in the insurance industry. And then, of course, in 2014, I sold my share out of Prime Meridian Direct. Long story around that as well. 4 years after we'd launched it. And in 2015, I sat down to develop DuePoint, which is where I am today. And we launched DuePoint on the 8th of February, 2016. And 8 years later, here we still are.
That's amazing. And I mean, I think what I'm picking up from you is really around resilience.
You have no idea. Resilience and persistence. If you want to be an entrepreneur, let's say it like this. The reason less than 0.5% of the population of the world are entrepreneurs is because 99.5% of people simply do not want to endure the pain. I mean, as a 28-year-old and a 29-year-old and a 30-year-old, I was carrying debt that people who in their 60s have never even known. They have not known what it's like to have people standing in front of you saying, we will take everything, including your underwear that you're wearing right now, unless you solve this problem.
They told you.
Like people, and so 99.5% of people are unwilling to do this. I often mention this in our training. You know, a while ago, the CEO of Woolworths was given 100 million Rand as he retired, and the trade unions went crazy. They're like, he never contributed. How can he get 100 million? We've got workers that earn hardly anything. They have no idea the strain, the hours, the stress, the input, the design, the innovation, the iteration that one man did to take Woolworths from what they were to what they are today. He earned every single cent and more of that 100 million Rand. But that's something that people that are not entrepreneurs will never understand. They have run from the risk. And as a result of running from the risk, they have never suffered the pain of becoming a successful entrepreneur. You ask any of them, you go to your Steve Jobs, go to your Elon Musk's, talk to them, and they'll tell you. I've seen a couple of Elon Musk podcasts where he has chatted about it. He says, you think you're an entrepreneur? You are not an entrepreneur until your very last cent has gone into your business, and you know that unless you make it succeed, you are starving the next month. Then you can call yourself an entrepreneur.
I've actually anecdotally come across many similar stories, you know, from the entrepreneurs who made it, where I mean, that's what differentiates them from those who didn't. They continued. And most entrepreneurs get to those moments when, the last cent, has been invested, then maybe even in a negative, like you said, like you were.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this. What helped you turn things around then to share with other aspiring and current entrepreneurs?
All right. So I've had two of these moments in my entrepreneurial career where I've had turning point moments. And if I think about that first turning point at the end of 2009, I think again, I learned the lesson that investing in yourself is always the best investment you can make. And so we had the choice at that time to wrap everything up and to go back to full-time. If we'd gone back to full-time employment to this day, we would still be paying off that debt. It would not be gone. My investment of time could not have been better invested anywhere outside of myself. And so while we were taking more risk on by starting another new business, we proved that investment in self is always the best investment. So again, if you look at what the really major successful guys around the world have done, they don't take their money and invest it in other things. They don't buy cars and houses. That's a very small percentage of their money. They take the vast majority of their money and they constantly reinvest it in themselves, in their own businesses, in their own ventures, in their own vision. So even if somebody else is building the business, they share the vision of those individuals. They're always investing in self. And I think that was the key thing that I learned there. And as I say, this turning point again, as I moved into DuePoint in 2016, 2017, I made the same decision again. I said, you have no guarantee of having another successful business. Statistically in South Africa, it's statistically impossible for you to have a successful business in South Africa. The percentage that succeed is so small that if you went to a statistician, he would say it's impossible for you to succeed. That's how small the percentage of success rate is in South Africa for new businesses. But having had the experience of knowing your best investment is always in yourself, again, I took everything I owned, and invested it again into a new business called DuePoint. And again, 8 years later, we're still here because it has been a successful method. It is, I think, in South Africa, arguably the most successful method. Now, if you look at the vast majority of South Africans, Patrick, today, the vast majority of South Africans are not investing in themselves. They are going back to their traditional jobs when they have them and systematically getting poorer. Inflation is way ahead of what they're earning. Cost of living is, I'd say, doubled in the last 3 years post-COVID. They are poorer and poorer and poorer. It is the least successful investment they can make is going to a traditional job at the moment. Least successful. If we look at other individuals who tried their small and medium-sized businesses, again, a lot of them have done it, but have done it with one foot still in another segment. I'm going to just stay safe. I'm not putting 100% into myself. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to keep myself safe on the side. And their businesses have not succeeded. We're seeing tremendous failure of small and medium-sized businesses. And so, yeah, I would say if there's one lesson that I've learned, and maybe it won't work for others, but it has worked for me, is that your best investment outside of everything else is investing in yourself.
And that's not just your money, from what I'm hearing, but of course, the essence of yourself,
money,
your time,
everything.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, if you look at Elon Musk and two entrepreneurs from South Africa who made it big in the US that come to mind, not just, I mean, there are many. I remember meeting Roelof Botha of Sequoia Capital on a trip, school trip and then he said that he had the option of being, he was like the second in his class, in his actuarial class, and he could have been very highly paid here, but he decided to bet on himself, to go and do something crazy. And there you have it. He's now a partner at Sequoia Capital, which, I suppose Elon Musk is the same. But what do you say to the vast majority then who might not have had the financial backing of, say, Elon Musk, whose father was well off? I think Roelof Botha's father was a Minister of Justice. What do you say to those like that who perhaps don't have that fallback option? Is that an excuse? Is that something that you think is overrated? What do you think? What do you say to them?
My father has a great saying he used to say to us as children, and I'll give you the context of it in a minute. My dad used to say there's got to come a point in your life when you have to stop blaming your past for your current circumstances. These were lessons that we learned before we left the house. The reason he made that statement was because my father came from a very, very poor background, and he has been very successful. My father is the founder of Clientele Life. He was CEO of a Mutual Life when he was 32 years old. He's very successful career and it's made him very wealthy. But he came from a background where he didn't eat every day. He ate every second or third day because they were so poor. He had a mother who had been an orphan and so came with a tremendous amount of brokenness into all of her relationships, including with her children. And so as a result, during his first 21 years of life, he had experienced 8 different fathers, and he lived in 3 different countries, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. And he went to 9 different schools between age 6 and age 18. At age 21, he couldn't bear it anymore, and he ran away from home and stayed with my mother in their, back in the day, servants' quarters, where my mother went to work and paid for him to get his BCom. And he built his career from that point on. So my dad often describes his start to life as being, I didn't start in the gutter of life. I started in the drain that the gutter leads into, and I built myself into a success. He had no father to assist him in building any of his business, no one to give him money, advice, anything. And he'll tell you that. He said he was grossly ill-equipped for what he did, but he put every single cent he had into himself: time, energy, emotion, and money. When he launched Clientele Life in 1991, he put every single cent in, so much so that when my mom's car ran out, the windscreen wipers of my mother's car wore out, he had to go to the dealership and ask them if he could pay it off over a year, the windscreen wipers. That's how. And now Clientele Life is a 6 billion rand business. Okay, so you cannot blame us. And it's one of the things that angers me most about South Africans is that we keep living in memory without having any vision. We keep going, it's the past that's making me now fail. And the past is getting further and further away, but it's the past the whole time that is being used to blame my current circumstance. Now, to be honest, as I said to you a little bit earlier, today, in the current economic and legislative environment that we have in South Africa, it is statistically impossible for you to succeed as somebody trying to do your own thing. There are those that will succeed, but they're so small and so few that statistically it's impossible. And this was the very reason why we started DuePoint in 2016. It was the very reason. As I sat down with my partner, Rob, I said, we have to build something that is going to bridge this huge divide that has been built by poor economic policy and even worse legislation. We've got to build a bridge over that problem that allows the vast majority of South Africans to become self-employed. Because unless they become self-employed, they will never be able to invest in themselves, and they will never be able to pull themselves out of poverty. They will continue to blame the past for their current circumstances. We've got to give them that bridge. And so we built a business. We won't get into all the details today, but we built DuePoint in a way that now allows every South African to become self-employed in an environment that will not put them at financial risk and will almost certainly guarantee for them an income that is sufficient to be a living, not what they're earning in their job that's not a living. What you earn in your job is just poverty, but enough that you can earn a living. And for those that are entrepreneurial of heart, build themselves into a position of real wealth through the course of this life. That's what we built at DuePoint. It had to be a private sector solution to a national problem. And that's what we believe we've done with it. So everybody now in South Africa has the opportunity to live a life of an entrepreneur without having to be terrified about the realities normally imposed on entrepreneurs.
Amazing. And the core point that I'm distilling from what you're saying is there is no excuse. There's always a way to build an asset, to build wealth. And there are people like yourself with DuePoint who have ways for you, if you were to invest the time and to invest in yourself through these businesses, you'd be able to succeed. I suppose maybe my question. Yeah.
I think, Patrick, it's a good point because it's such a contentious thing to say there is no excuse. We are in the fortunate position here at DuePoint of seeing hundreds of people a month coming through our doors, tens of thousands a year. And that they come with such varying circumstances. We have seen the most horrendous stories of circumstances, and these individuals have built themselves out of those circumstances with us at DuePoint, but we have seen elsewhere outside of DuePoint people who have built themselves into success out of the most heinous circumstances. So we put the stories of a lot of these people up on our YouTube channel, and I often stand up on our stage and say, if you believe your circumstances are so bad that they make you unique, just jump onto our YouTube channel and you're going to find your circumstances on our YouTube channel. Just this last week, on Sunday night, I was watching the brand new Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix. If you want to see a story of a guy who had absolutely no chance of succeeding in life, becoming arguably the most successful human being on earth, go and watch just episode 1 of that documentary. Go and hear the background that Arnold comes out of, and you ask yourself again, can we really say that our excuse, our circumstance, is worse than everybody else's, and therefore I cannot succeed? Can we really make that statement? I don't believe it at all.
And tell me then, you mentioned betting in yourself, you mentioned resilience. I'm not sure what those be nurtured, or are you born with them? And is there any other characteristic, if you were to look back, because you've picked 2, and I usually ask for 3 characteristics that you've seen in yourself and the entrepreneurs you've, I suppose, empowered through DuePoint that really, helped you succeed. They might not be characteristics or personality traits. They may be more skill-based. They may be anything. What will be the third one? You mentioned.
All right, well, let's see if we can pull 3 out. There's one in particular. There is definitely one in particular. So let me start by saying absolutely everybody can succeed, no matter your circumstances, whether your circumstances are absolutely terrible or incredibly good. There are across the globe success stories from every percentage on the scale of prior circumstances, from the worst all the way through the best. People have succeeded out of all of those circumstances. So we know that circumstances are not what determines success. We know that, okay? Ooh, that's contentious. No, but that doesn't fit with our rhetoric. Yeah, it might not fit with your rhetoric, but it is a factual truth. So what is it then that gets some people, this 0.5%, to really succeed, and gets the other 99.5% to kind of just dwindle into the background, into the masses, which then scale from kind of middle class down to the poorest? What is it? Well, we have seen it, and I've seen it now over the course of the last 25 years. One single thing, and that is the decision to do it. And that sounds incredibly simple. It's like I'm being ridiculous. And I thought it was the same when I first realized it. I thought, no, that's ridiculous. That can't be it. But I have seen it repeatedly. There comes a moment in a successful person's life. There's a moment where they go, I'm doing this. And when Stuart, my brother, and I sat down on Boxing Day in December 2009, and I remember seeing it on his face, and he saw it on my face. We went, enough is enough. We are now doing this. And that's all it took. It was this decision where nothing else would matter anymore until we had succeeded. And as we've watched over the course of the last 10 years at DuePoint, we have seen that moment. People have come into our business, bumbled around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then there's been that moment where they've gone, no, I'm doing this now. And within 12 months, they have completely changed their financial circumstances. And if I go and I look through the stories again, I told you, Sunday night, I just watched a story. He tells of that moment. He's 16 years old. He's sitting in a cinema in Austria when he goes, enough. Now it's happening. And within 3 years of that, he is an international world champion. 36 months after that decision. I've seen it 100 times across my business and outside my business. It is the moment when you properly decide that you're going to succeed, that your success begins. But 99% of people never get there. They never get to that point. It's the beauty of traditional employment. It pays you just enough to rob you of all your dreams and just enough to get you to come back on Monday. That's what it does. That is what a traditional job does. It just pays you enough to get you back on Monday. And so you never reach the point where you go, right, enough is enough. Now it's time for me to succeed.
So am I wrong in understanding that there needs to be a level of pain?
Always. Absolutely. Not only a level of pain that most people would never be willing to tolerate. Think about all the Olympians, all the professional sportsmen. Do you think they didn't go through pain to become professionals? They didn't go through pain. They went through more pain than you could possibly bear. But what do they have at the end of the day? The fame, the millions, the prestige, the gold medals. They have the success. And in 99% of the case of these sorts of guys, they have the financial freedom. These guys make so much money during their sporting careers that for the rest of their lives, they don't have to work again. But they paid the price intensely over an incredibly short period of time. Now, you don't have to pay it so intensely. You can spread it a bit. Are you willing to take responsibility for your own income? If you're willing to take responsibility, it means you need to take pain. And if you take the pain over a period of 5, 10, 20 years, we're more than likely you're going to be far more successful in the second half of your life and far more financially independent in the second half of your life than your peers that had jobs, that are now getting retrenched, now getting fired, now have the realization they cannot afford to send their kids to school, pay for medical aid, cover the costs, go on holiday. They can do none of that, but they've had a nice, safe job. They haven't had to take responsibility for their income. They haven't had to take any pain for the period where you were under pain, where you were in that environment, risking, taking responsibility. But now you're free. And that's often what I chat to my wife about. I say to my wife, I'm doing all of this. I'm working all these hours. I'm putting everything we own on the line. But I know that when I'm 60, I'm going to be going on cruises around the world, chilling out, buying a new car every 3 years, when my peers are going to be in a panic because they don't have a pension, they can't afford the medical aid at 65, they certainly can't afford to replace their car or move to a new house because they're cruising now.
Sure.
Cruising. I just go to work, I get my 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 rand a month. The dream is robbed from you the moment you get into a traditional job.
That being said, something that I'm understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that one cannot really achieve this unless one goes at it full tilt. Are we saying that one can have a job to finance the ambition? Or are you saying that potentially that you can do that in the beginning, but at some point you need to, cross the Rubicon?
This is my personal experience again. I'm sure somebody's done a factual scientific paper about it out there. So you're always amazed to see how many people have done research on this stuff. But in my experience, watching my peers and those that have worked with us, you're either all in or you're all out. It isn't a halfway mark. That's why in a lot of our training, the training that I give, I go, you want all the things that DuePoint has to offer, effectively financial freedom. You want all those things, well, then you need to choose to have them. You can't choose to dabble in them. I'm going to keep my job, keep my foot in the safe, off the field, and only have one foot on the rugby field. You see, I often use the rugby analogy. I love rugby. And I use the analogy of rugby where I say, the guys that I always laugh, you can play the Springboks and you can beat the Springboks. But even when you beat the Springboks, you leave the field.
It hurt.
That's right. So it's tremendously prestigious to beat the Springboks, but you know you're going to bleed. Okay. But let's put that aside. If you get onto the rugby field and you pretend that success is the victory of the game of rugby, you know that during the game, you're going to get tackled. But more than that, you know you're going to be tackled continuously until you win. So don't come in and put one foot off the field, one foot in the field, get tackled once and quit, because that's not how you win. That's not how you win rugby. You put both feet on the field and you get tackled continuously until you win. And then you walk off, you get the trophy, the prestige, the sponsorships, the TV ads, that it all comes to you, but you bled on that field. I can't see. And in my experience of all those that have succeeded at DuePoint and all my peers that have succeeded in the economy of South Africa, none of them have walked away and gone, well, I did that on the side. It was a hobby. How much fun it is that I earned all that money off my hobby. Maybe there's an example out there, one, but for the vast majority, you're either in it, you've made the decision, and you're in it to win it, or you're out. You don't succeed.
Powerful.
And again, Patrick, that's why we designed DuePoint the way we did. We said we're going to put it into a format that allows you to commit 100% from day one and not lose your house, not be able to feed yourself, not lose your car, not get divorced, none of that. We put you in an environment where those massive normal risks of entrepreneurship have been removed. But you still have to be 100% committed. You got to come in. You got to come and devote yourself to it. But what we'll do is we'll protect you through that process. Something you don't get anywhere in the entrepreneurial world outside of you is the sort of layered protection that we offer you.
Beautiful. And before I ask you about where we can find out more about, can I ask you a crowning question or final question that I just came up with now? I'm sure I've taken it from somewhere though. What does freedom mean for you?
That was a question that was asked to, I think it was Nicky Oppenheimer back in the 80s by a cheeky journalist. He said to him, what's it like being so rich? This is along the same thing. Like, what's it like to be financially free? And his answer was convenient. One of the things that I've explained to the many tens of thousands of wealth engineers that we have at DuePoint, I've said to them, when you're financially free and you get sick, it's not a problem. A friend of mine always says, I go to the hospital and I go, here's my credit card, here's my medical aid card, fix me. When you are financially free and you're in a motor car accident, it doesn't matter because your insurance fixes it. You buy another one. When you're financially free and your house burns down, it doesn't matter. You go and buy another one. But when you're not financially free and you get sick, it's career ending. When you're not financially free and you have a motor car accident, you're walking. And when you're not financially free and your house burns down, you're sleeping in a shack. People say to me at DuePoint, Brendan, all you ever talk about is money. Money's not everything. And I go, you're absolutely right. Money is 99% of things. I'll solve the 99% for you. You can go solve the 1%. That's what freedom looks like. Actually.
Powerful. And I suppose after this interview, you and I can talk about what that number is for you. I know it's a lot.
So no, I'm happy to answer that question now. It's not a number. So I've been asked that question before. A successful older chap, he's the generation above me, said to me, Brendan, how much money would you like to have before you feel that you are financially free? And I'll give you the same answer I gave him. It's not a number. It's a flow. You see, people keep thinking, if I had 100 million rand, I'd be financially free. No, you're not. Look at how quickly the rand is deteriorating. You know, in 2020, you could buy a 911 Turbo for 2 million rand. Today, it's 6. That's 3 years later, it's triple the price. It means if you had 100 million rand in 2020, you are worth 33 million rand today. That's what it is. Give it another 3 years, you'll be worth 10 million rand. It's not a fixed number. What freedom is, financial freedom is an asset that you own that produces an income for you every single month. Because it means that you're never going to find yourself in a position where you don't have money. The money comes in every month because of an asset that you built. So the flow of income is freedom. When you have a job, you don't have that. If you have a job, next month I could fire you. It's gone. There's no underlying asset. You could get sick, hospitalized, job gone. No financial asset, no asset underneath to produce an income for you. The same as if you had 100 million rand in the bank 5 years from now, it's gone and you've got nothing. Financial freedom and what the number is that makes you wealthy is an asset that produces a monthly income. Only then are you wealthy. Before then, you might be rich for a very short period of time.
Amazing. I'm sure we can get into many questions as to what type of assets, but I'm sure you would say...
No, any asset that produces an income. Patrick,
Okay.
It's your business. It's your
Got it.
business that you build that produces a monthly income.
All right.
And as I said, there's very few people that are in that position.
So
doing what we
investments wouldn't be an asset? What if you take
do.
that
No,
out?
investment would be an asset, but where did the money for the investment come from?
There we go.
You see what I'm saying? If you can't say to South Africans, go and invest in the stock exchange. What are they going to invest in? What money are they going to put in?
That's it.
No, we have got to start by building the asset. If you're going to look at the people, the founding fathers in America, they didn't arrive with cash. They arrived with shovels. And they built the asset that produced the income. And what we do and what self-employment means is build that asset from scratch. At DuePoint, we put you in a position where we give you the shovels, we give you the Caterpillar machines, we give you all that so that you don't end up in 60 million rands worth of debt. We get you going without the normal risks so that you can build this asset. The only cost to you is letting us have a stake in that asset. We get a stake in it, but we protect you from the normal risks that would be associated with self-employment. But you give us a stake in that asset.
Beautiful. And to leave off, then thank you for this. It's been amazing. How can we learn more about you and what you do?
Easy enough. For the absolute basics, jump onto our website, www.dewpoint.net. Alternatively, jump onto our Facebook page. We have arguably the biggest financial services Facebook page in the country. Jump onto it and you will see, as you scroll through, loads of presentations. We call them introduction presentations. Excuse me. They're about 35 minutes to an hour long, depending on which one you've got. And if you watch that, we give you a detailed explanation of what DuePoint is and how it works. You can watch hundreds of those on our Facebook page. And if you want to see some of the fruits of DuePoint, our training packages, get to know our background, our history, and how we work kind of thing, and some of the testimonial stories, or hundreds of testimonial stories, YouTube. jump onto YouTube, search DuePoint. It's the golden D. Click on it and go and dig through those stories. And I think that, well, they inspire me. As I say, you will find people who have come out of the most incredibly harsh circumstances and built for themselves an asset that creates a recurring income for them. And now they are wealthy. So those are the spots that you can go to. We're on TikTok and Instagram and all of that as well. But those are your three ones. DuePoint.net, YouTube, Facebook, and you'll know everything you need to know about DuePoint there.
Thank you very
You can
much.
also see me on TV. We've been interviewed on TV a bunch of times over the last 2 years. On our website, we've got a link to those interviews. DSTV, SABC, ETV, they're always calling us to talk about what we're doing.
I watched one of those interviews. Brendan, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Patrick. A privilege to chat to you as well. Thank you very much.
You made it to the end. Thank you. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, please send an email to Pat, P-A-T, DuePoint, DuePoint, @gmail.com to be made aware of Brendan's training on how South Africans can build financial assets.